WWE likes to think they're a company that makes dreams come true. Nightmares are dreams after all, but it's no secret that the dream of many young WWE fans is to win a WWE championship in the main event of WrestleMania or something to that effect. Pyro, ballyhoo, pomps, circumstance. When all of these things are combined with a great match, you can really make a title win feel special. Brock Lesnar capturing the WWE title from The Rock, Daniel Bryan overcoming his former pro to win the United States Championship. Delectable stuff. However, while winning your first title may be a dream come true for some, for others it was a night they would like to forget. Not all title wins are created equal, and sometimes a WWE star's first title win is so bad it needs to be eternally sunshined away from our collective spotless minds. I'm Tempest, hailing from partsFUNknown, and these are 10 WWE stars who won their first championships in terrible matches. Personally, I would like to thank everybody who has subscribed to partsFUNknown over the years, as we just passed 200,000 subscribers over WrestleMania weekend, and that will never not be nuts to me. So thank you to everybody who subscribed, and if you aren't subscribed, well, hop on board, we're heading to 250. Number 10. The Undertaker, Survivor Series 1991. Just 1 year after sauntering down to the ring for the first time at Survivor Series 1990, Jeremy, your only form of hellish entertainment, finally got a title shot against WWE Champion Hulk Hogan at Survivor Series 1991. Hogan certainly was not known for 20-minute classics, but under the right circumstances and with the right opponent, a great match could be had. A 1991 full-on zombified Undertaker was not the right opponent, and these were not the right circumstances. There's a lot of face squeezing, as was the style of Undertaker matches at the time. Hogan takes a tombstone and completely no-sells it, immediately popping to his feet and hulking up as my eyes glaze over watching the fakest bit of WWE programming from 1991. The Undertaker's style evolved over his 30-year career, but this match was the worst of both his and Hogan's styles at the time. He may be a Hall of Famer now, but it's crazy to think that it would take 16 more years before The Undertaker would win a world title in a good match. Number 9. Batista, Armageddon 2003. That's right, kids, this list is not limited to just world titles, meaning for folks like Batista, you have to venture back to Armageddon 2003 to find the first time Big Dave won some leather and gold. The title in question was the World Tag Team Championship, which Old Sapper Morton won with Evolution mentor Ric Flair. Batista still calls this one of his two favorite moments of his career, the other was WrestleMania 21, but unfortunately this title win came at the end of WWE's favorite answer to not wanting to book a tag team feud, a tag team turmoil match. Fun! WWE love doing these in the Ruthless Aggression era, and they're just like all gauntlet matches. If they're given time, they have a chance to be good. If they didn't, well, you get the picture. This one featured the all-star lineup of teams Rosie and Hurricane, Rene Dupree and Rob Conway, Garrison Cade and Mark Jindrak, Lance Storm and Val Venus, Scott Steiner and Test, and the Dudleys. This match never had a chance of being good, with 6 little mini matches being crammed into 15 minutes and 48 seconds. If you only judge from when Batista and Flair enter, it's an inoffensive 4-minute match, but you have to include this dreadful preamble, and had Dave not had to wrestle Shawn Michaels earlier in the night, he and Rick against the Dudleys in a straight tag match would have been much better. Number 8. Braun Strowman, WrestleMania 34. Oh, speaking of tag team matches that sucked, Braun Strowman got far more over than anyone expected him to in 2017, simply by pushing Roman Reigns off of things, and to be fair, that was the dream of a large portion of the WWE audience at the time, which resulted in a very high-profile match with Brock Lesnar at No Mercy 2017 for the Universal title. That match wasn't great either, but it certainly felt important. The same cannot be said for the Strowman's actual first title win, which I had genuinely blocked out of my memory prior to writing this. Raw Tag Champions The Bar were challenged by Braun Strowman and a mystery partner at WrestleMania 34. Ooh, mystery partners are fun. I wonder who it'll be. Maybe an NXT call-up, maybe a repackaged character. Confusion broke out as Braun said he was picking someone out of the crowd to be his partner. Certainly intriguing, considering if he was in the right section, he could have selected Hiroshi Tanahashi, Kazuchika Okada, or Minoru Suzuki, any of whom would have made sure this match did not appear on this list, but rather, no, Braun chose the 9-year-old. People overuse the word burial in wrestling too much these days, but a single star and a child beating the tag champs just to give the belt back the next day anyway is as much a burial as this was a match. Number 7. John Cena, WrestleMania 20. From one WrestleMania moment to a significantly better one, John Cena managed to capture his first United States Championship from the Big Show at WrestleMania 20. this match is remembered for two reasons. It's Cena's first title win, and holy hell, that is a human waterbed engulfing Cena's shoulders. Watching people lift Big Show will never not be impressive, no matter how many times Cena has done it, and as impressive as a moment that is, unfortunately the match that precedes it is about as dull a WrestleMania opener as you can get. Cena was far from a polished worker at the time, and Big Show wasn't exactly the ring general to pull a classic out of an inexperienced Cena. It's a 9-minute slog and not the best way to kick off one of the most legendary championship careers in WWE history, but the moment will live forever because that is just too big of a show to be on John's shoulders. Number 6, Natalya, Survivor Series 2010. Has there been another WWE women's wrestler with as bizarre a career as Natalya? She's been there for 14 years, farted a bunch, has generally been beaten like a drum when at all possible, all the while being maybe WWE's most reliable women's wrestler of her generation pre-NXT. Natalya has rarely been used as the focus of the division, only winning 2 singles titles, and it really is a shame the first one came during a time like this. During the Lay Cool Reign of Terror on SmackDown, Natalya was forced to wrestle both Layla and Michelle McCool in a handicap match for the Bratz belt at Survivor Series 2010. Considering this was smack dab in the middle of WWE's "What's Women's Wrestling Never Heard of It" phase, it should come as no surprise that the match only went 3 minutes. Natalya would have much better matches for titles later in her career, and this really is more of a sign of the times than anything else. Number 5, Kurt Angle, SmackDown, February 10th, 2000. Now I will be honest, terrible is a bit of a stretch for this one. There isn't anything egregiously wrong with Kurt Angle's first title win, but something about one of the best wrestlers of all time winning the European Championship from Val Venus in a short, heatless match just doesn't sit right with me. Kurt Angle was still an incredibly fresh face to the WWE audience, so much so that they didn't get the memo that they were watching one of the greats, instead treating this like an average mid-card performance. Unfortunately, it kinda was. This was only like 5 minutes with nothing of interest happening. I mean, if you can find a way to be at all interest in anything Val Venus does, then you have a stronger will than I. The fans didn't even pop for the finish because they weren't familiar with Kurt's finisher yet. On the plus side, Kurt celebrates like he wins the Stanley Cup after winning the European Championship, which is funny because it's the European Championship. Number 4, Cesaro, SummerSlam 2012. It was a different time when Antonio Cesaro stepped onto the WWE scene in 2012. The Shield had not yet arrived, Daniel Bryan's yes chants were only starting to take off, and the landscape of WWE was not designed for independent stars like Cesaro. One could argue that it never was. But by SummerSlam 2012, Cesaro was set to become United States Champion. A pretty solid step for someone only a few months in. The only problem was he had to wrestle Santino Marella for it, and if you needed less of a reason to see it, it was also on the kickoff show. It's not like the two don't try, but it's a 5-minute match on the pre-show. Not exactly the type of match that gets out of first gear. Not to mention the sheer lunacy of the wrestler's wrestler Cesaro having to deal with Santino's stupid Cobra sock puppet being attracted to Oksana against Santino's will. What makes this more depressing is that in his 10 years on the main roster, this was Cesaro's only singles title win, fighting a sock. Number 3, Sami Zayn, Elimination Chamber 2020. For a long time, it seemed as if Sami Zayn would go his entire WWE main roster run without winning a championship of any kind. Title shots weren't exactly plentiful, and the ones that did come his way, such as WWE Championship matches in 2018, proved unfruitful. It wasn't until Elimination Chamber 2020 that Sami finally got his hands on some gold for the first time, and they sure picked some interesting circumstances to make it happen in, didn't they? Sami was part of the Artist Collective at the time, a group of misfit great wrestlers without a home or purpose, and they were determined to retrieve the Intercontinental Championship from the clutches of Brawny the Strowman. Where this gets strange is at Elimination Chamber, all 3 artists collectively faced Strowman in a 3-on-1 handicap match for the title. Zayn was the one who managed to get the pin and win the title, but not before 9 minutes of 3 exciting wrestlers wearing down a giant in the least exciting manner possible. Seriously, the crowd barely makes a sound. Maybe they were all lost in a trance thinking about how they wouldn't be allowed outside in a week's time. When you consider Sami's first title win could have been beating Kevin Owens for the IC title, the US title, or the Universal title, all of which would have been excellent, this match becomes a little bit harder to swallow. Number 2, Ryback, Elimination Chamber 2015. Terrible might be a strong word for some of the matches on this list. Some are short, underwhelming, uninteresting, but we are officially in train wreck territory, folks. Watching every single Elimination Chamber match earlier this year for the Every Elimination Chamber Participant Ranked list gave me a fun perspective watching all the matches through today's eyes. Some were better than I remembered, some were about the same, and some were just as butt-ass garbage as I remembered. I'll give you 3 guesses which category this one falls under. We've talked about this match match a lot lately, but the spark notes are Mark Henry's pod pops open before it's supposed to, the match falls apart, Dolph says, "It's just a little train wreck, it's still good, and tries to put the pieces back together. It doesn't work. Sheamus acts like he's stuck, and finally and mercifully, Ryback wins. To date, this is the only championship Ryback ever won in WWE. If he wants to show anyone that time Ryback won a belt, they will have to sit through this match, and, well, I don't think they would want to do that. And number 1, The Big Show, Halloween Havoc 1995. And we close out our list with something so absurd and so inconceivably terrible that we have to allow for another promotion to step in for the top spot. Before he was Tall Paul, before he was The Big Show, he was simply known as The Giant, supposedly the son of Andre the Giant, who elected to use his father's middle and last names, but decided to forego a first name. At Halloween Havoc 1995, The Giant not only won his first championship, but it was the WCW World Championship, and he did it in his very first ever match. That sounds impressive, right? Well, that's only the bare bones facts. First, they started by yelling, "I am Monster Truck," at each other while driving around a rooftop in a Monster Truck sumo match. Don't get any ideas, NXT 2.0. Then, the Giant is pushed off the roof and seemingly killed, only to walk out to the arena about 10 minutes later without a scratch on him, with commentary explaining that he fell in the Detroit River next to Cobo Hall. A more ridiculous explanation than even the second smaller roof at Money in the Bank 2020. Once it's in the ring, things settle down for a bit, and then you had what may have been the worst ending to a pay-per-view of all time. As Jimmy Hart turns on Hulk Hogan, Savage and Luger come out to make the save, Luger immediately turns on Savage, and finally a man taller than Big Show, wrapped in toilet paper, comes out and gyrates on Hulk Hogan. Somehow, some way, all of that utter tomfoolery resulted in the Giant winning the WCW Championship by disqualification. Hell of a first night on the job, Tall Paul. But seriously, can someone tell me what in the blue hell is a Yeti? And that's our list. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like and share it around with your friends. Maybe they'll like it too. And tell them to subscribe so they don't miss out on any fun wrestling content just like this. If you know of any other wrestlers who won their first championships in terrible matches, let me know in the comments. I did a lot of research and this was a hard list to research. That being said, make sure you stay beautiful and remember that LIW is fine.